what's up? Sinisa, Super Bad Estrada here, and I just want to give a huge special shout out to the relay. Thank you so much for all of the continuous support, and thank you for all of the support during and after and before every single fight.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
We'll start with this, the latest on what's supposed to be Muciño versus Gabriela Fundora. The purse bid has been cancelled. IBF flyweight title fight eyed for October.
They're in the process of ironing out a deal. Dangerous fight for Muciño.
Nicknamed the Machine Gun.
La ametralladora.
For her volume, punching, and aggression, though she's not the fighter today that she used to be. In any event, Muciño and Gabriela Fundora used the extra time allotted to reach a deal for their ordered clash. BoxingScene.com has confirmed that enough progress was made between the two camps where the IBF agreed to cancel a purse bid hearing for the mandatory flyweight title fight. The matter was due to be the subject of a hearing held Tuesday at IBF headquarters in Springfield, New Jersey, but is no longer on the schedule. Neither a date nor location were confirmed for the bout, though Boxing Scene has learned that mid to late October is the likely time frame.
Gabriela Fundora, the younger sister of Sebastian Fundora, towers over most of the weight class, just like her brother.
Fighting out of the southpaw stance, she has the same kind of mean streak that Muciño has. She tries to punish her opponents mid-range to inside, but she's a lot taller, a lot longer, and a lot younger than Muciño.
Something to be considered.
She's 13 years younger than Muciño.
Something to be considered.
Muciño versus Fundora was first ordered on July 13th, though originally with the disclaimer that the mandatory was due to take place by July 29th. The deadline was specifically 9 months from when Muciño claimed the IBF title in a well-earned split decision victory over then unbeaten champion Leonela Paula Judica last October 29th in San Diego, California. The two sides could not come to terms within the prescribed deadline, which prompted a purse bid hearing. The 2-week period between the deadline and the scheduled purse bid was enough time to satisfy both parties. Muciño has won 11 straight, which included a WBO reign.
A WBO title reign that ended due to the unkind combination of an injury and the pandemic,
which left her out of the ring for nearly 2 years. The 34-year-old from Monterrey, Mexico, has since fought twice each in 2021 and 2022, capped by her win over Judica to become a 4-time flyweight titleist. Fundora has quickly risen into contention. The 21-year-old southpaw, whose older brother, Sebastian Fundora, is a top junior middleweight turned pro in May of 2021 and already advanced to the 10-round level by last October.
The most notable win to date came for Fundora in her most recent appearance when she overcame a cut to outpoint former title challenger Maria Santizo over 8 rounds. That same Maria Santizo is going to be sharing the ring with Yo Costavalle very soon.
Gabriela is going to be facing Muciño, a veteran of 37 professional contests, 37 professional bouts to Gabriela's 11.
Muciño is also part of a proud boxing family. Her husband is Angel Tito Acosta of Puerto Rico, a former WBO junior flyweight titleist. They are both trained by Joel Diaz out of his facility in Indio, California, mere minutes from Fundora's Coachella hometown.
It's a small world, boxing is. The winner of this mandated title fight will be in a pole position to next challenge for the undisputed crown opposite the ring, the winner of what could be Esparza versus Alanis 2.
They're in the process of making that rematch based on the fight's controversial outcome.
So the rest of the divisional hardware is owned by lineal WBC, WBA, and WBO champion Marlen Esparza, who is currently ordered to face former titleist Gabriela Alanis of Argentina in a rematch. Esparza won their July 8th unification bout by majority decision,
albeit an unconvincing one.
They have officially been ordered to run it back, and they're in the process of doing that as it pertains to Muciño, reigning IBF champion, and Gabriela Fundora, the challenger. It's an interesting fight because Muciño is by and large a more experienced fighter than Gabriela Fundora. She is.
There is such a thing as too much experience. She's a lot older and a lot smaller and a lot more weathered and war-torn than Gabriela Fundora.
This were a prime Muciño. Muciño from a few years ago, I would have given her much, much better odds to be too much, too soon for Gabriela Fundora. But the circumstances as they are beg the question, who's catching who at the right time? Is Gabriela Fundora catching Areli at the right time, or is it the other way around? Is Areli catching this fighter when she's still green enough to be beaten?
Areli's lost a step, there's no doubt about that. She's not now at 34 years old after 37 bouts who she was a few years ago.
There's no question that she has lost a step, but even with that, is that enough for Gabriela after only 11 fights to come along and beat her?
The fight between them set to go down in October will likely be part of a Golden Boy Promotions show, as Areli Muciño is a Golden Boy Promotions fighter.
Who's catching who at the right time here? That's the question, and there really is only one way to find out, and we'll find out in October. In men's middleweight news, you may have heard that Janibek versus Vincenzo Gualtieri middleweight title unification bout nearly set for October 14th.
This is more or less what I expected to happen, except I expected that Esquiva Falcao would beat out Vincenzo Gualtieri for the IBF title, then he would fight Janibek.
As it turns out, Vincenzo beat him, and all the same, a unification match is next. It's not the type of high-profile middleweight title unification fight he sought, but Janibek will face another 160-pound champion next. BoxingScene.com has learned that Kazakhstan's Alimkhanalai and Germany's Vincenzo Gualtieri have agreed to square off in a 12-round championship unification match on October 14th. Barring any issues with Gualtieri's visa, the deal will be finalized soon and announced by Bob Arum's Top Rank Inc., which promotes Alimkhanalai. ESPN will televise the bout between Alimkhanalai, who owns the WBO middleweight title, and Gualtieri, who holds the IBF.
You can't complain.
No, it's not a big money fight or a big high-profile fight, but it is a unification match.
You can't complain.
As the 30-year-old Alimkhanalai repeatedly called out long inactive WBC champion Jermall Charlo, WBA champion Erislandy Lara, and former WBO champion Demetrius Andrade. The Oxnard, California-based boxer has settled, however, for the less appealing optional title defenses against England's Denzel Bentley and Canada's Stephen Butler, since he won the WBO interim middleweight title by stopping the overmatched Brit Danny Dignam in the third round of their May.
Middleweight division's a shit show.
But Top Rank is doing what they can to spice things up by staging the first unification match it will have seen in a long while.
And you can't complain.
You can't, because there are 4 champions at this weight, and 2 of them are set to fight, but what are the other 2 doing?
Nothing.
Vincenzo Gualtieri, 30, won the then-vacant IBF middleweight title in his last fight when he beat Brazil's own Esquiva Falcao by way of a unanimous decision in a 12-round fight for one of the middleweight titles Gennady Golovkin gave up. Gualtieri dropped Falcao once apiece in the 2nd and 10th rounds and won their contest comfortably July 1st in Germany.
I thought it was going to be the other way around. I thought due to Esquiva Falcao's amateur background and him being a southpaw, an unbeaten one, that he would go on to become IBF champion. But Gualtieri upset those plans.
Now he's going to be fighting Janibek Alimkhanalai this fall. Janibek, who's called out Carlos Adames for a spring showdown next year.
Janibek is with Top Rank, Carlos Adames is with the PBC.
You figure that by this time next year, in spring, maybe Carlos Adames is elevated to full champion, because something's got to give with Jermall. He's either got to come back and defend that belt or give it up. The middleweight division doesn't have the big names associated with it like it used to, something that annoys Janibek Alimkhanalai. Of course, we could take the trip down memory lane and discuss Hall of Fame greats like Bernard Hopkins and Marvin Hagler, but their title reigns took place before Alimkhanalai even knew how to tie his shoes. Around his own era, however, Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin were considered modern-day greats, and while Alimkhanalai was hoping to eventually face them, neither are realistic options. Alvarez is campaigning at 168 and has no interest in shrinking back down in weight. Golovkin, on the other hand, is a complex puzzle to figure out. He has dropped both of his alphabet titles, but he has yet to officially retire.
That in tandem with Janibek saying on his social media that he's got no interest in facing Triple G because he's his elder and he looks up to him.
That's what he said. It may not be the star-studded division that it once was, but Alimkhanalai is making the best of it. With the WBO title already in his possession, the 30-year-old is on the verge of his first unification bout as he eyes a matchup with newly crowned IBF champion Vincenzo Gualtieri.
Beyond that, he wants Carlos Adames.
Carlos Carlos used to be a top-ranked fighter. He used to be right there on that side of the street. But after that decision loss to Brazil's Patrick Teixeira, looks like they cut him. It looks like they cut him loose.
Pops up on the PBC side of things, and he's been over there ever since.
It's important to note that Carlos Adames, unlike Janibek Alimkhanalai and unlike Vincenzo Gualtieri, Carlos is not a bona fide champion. He's not a full champion. He's a WBC interim champion. But the logic might be that if you fight him in spring of next year, maybe he'll be champion then.
By that time, at the moment, it's unknown if or when Charlo will ever step foot inside the ring. So, with idle champion on the sidelines, Alimkhanalai has painted a bullseye on the back of Adames, saying, Carlos Adames, soon I will have 2 titles.
Inshallah.
Said Alimkhanalai on his social media account, you take your WBC title and we will fight for 3 titles in the spring. 2 titles are on the top ranked side of things, more or less 2 titles, and 2 are on the PBC side of things.
Aging veteran and now newly crowned 2-division champion Erislandy Lara, he's got the WBA title that Gennady Golovkin left behind. Jermall Charlo, he's got the WBC, he's still got it, even though he's been missing in action.
Carlos Adames is paying no mind to Jermall, saying, I'm the real champion.
Not yet, he isn't, but he should be, or at minimum, he should have been given the opportunity to become the real champion a long time ago. But the World Boxing Council is giving Jermall Charlo unethical amounts of amnesty.
An undisclosed amount of time to sort himself out so he can return to action. And given the amount of time that he's been gone, it's not likely that he comes back as a middleweight.
He hasn't made middleweight in years. For over 2 years now, over 2 going on 3, the 33-year-old Charlo has dealt with a long list of personal issues. Although his middleweight contemporaries sympathize with him, many, including Carlos Adames, are sick and tired of waiting around.
Should be.
You figure that if Jermall hasn't made the middleweight limit in 2 going on 3 years, his very first fight back, whenever that is, it likely won't be at middleweight. It'll likely be up there at super middleweight.
Which means even if Jermall were to come back in the coming weeks and months, his return to the middleweight division may take even longer.
Carlos Adames, the Dominican native, has been begging for an opportunity to fight for a middleweight title, but while he's hurled every insult in the book in the direction of Charlo, a showdown between them doesn't seem to be on the horizon. To a certain extent, Adames was placated when the sanctioning body allowed him to fight for their interim tag, and while he's grateful, he's hoping to either face Charlo or be elevated due to Charlo's inactivity. Ultimately, Suleiman recently came out and addressed the situation. From his mouth to Adames's ears, Suleiman admitted
that it doesn't matter how long Charlo remains out, he has no intention of demoting him.
At premise, Jermall Charlo would have to relinquish the title willingly, and he has yet to do that.
So Carlos is fucked.
It's not what Adames wanted to hear. He's still holding out hope that Suleiman will change his mind. Still, even if he doesn't, Adames doesn't view himself as simply an interim champion. Right now, we're just waiting, Adames told YSM Sports Media when asked if he's frustrated with his current circumstances. We don't know if they're going to strip him or mandate him to fight me, but right now we know I'm the real champion.
In terms of name value, the most high-profile fight the middleweight division has seen in a long while was the Chris Eubank versus Liam Smith fight, and the rematch set to go down this weekend. That's in terms of name value.
In terms of legacy, in terms of what is sporting, the first unification match it will have seen in a long while is the upcoming Janibek Alimkhanalai versus Vincenzo Gualtieri fight. So just getting a whiff of that, you can see what the state of the middleweight division is.
It's a shit show.
Now, as it pertains to Carlos says, most likely I'll be back in the ring by November or December. No opponent is concrete as of right now, and there are not that many high-profile opponents, if any, lying around.
Not on the PBC side of things, not for Carlos Adames.
This whole thing the WBC has going on with Jermall Charlo is hurting this division, taking away from it and what it could be.
And this is why I said, even though Janibek versus Gualtieri is not the most high-profile unification match, you can't complain, because at least they're unifying. What is Jermall doing?
Where's Erislandy Lara?
The other 2 champions at this weight, what are they up to?
Seemingly from out of the shadows emerges former IBF middleweight champion Daniel Jacobs, who's calling for a clash with Jermall Charlo, saying he's ready for that fight and he's got at least one more left in him. Though myself, I think he's barking up the wrong tree. If Carlos Adames can't get a fight with Jamal, what chance does Daniel Jacobs have?
Exactly.
I'm not beefing with anybody, but everybody knows I've been wanting for years to fight Jamal Charlo, said Jacobs in an interview with Ellie Sekbak. That's the fight I still want. I don't know what's going on with it. I'm ready for that fight mentally and physically. We'll see what happens in the future.
We haven't seen Daniel Jacobs in over a year's time since he dropped a decision to John Rydier.
Myself, I felt like Daniel Jacobs had done enough to win the fight, even though he didn't look his best. Better still, they gave the nod to John Ryder, and the rest, as they say, is history. Here and now, Daniel Jacobs is not ready to retire, but I think he's barking up the wrong tree. I mean, you want to fight Jamal Charlo? Jamal hasn't fought in 2 going on 3 years. At what weight would this contest even take place?
160, 168. Danny himself hasn't made 160 in years.
I got 1 or 2 more in me. I'm looking for the right fight. I ain't looking for no step-aside, no fill-in fights. It's been a few years since I've been calling out people, and I haven't received any feedback. I'm just waiting for the right fight, but like I said, the time will come. If a potential fight were to take place, aside from the sizable sums they'd be asking for, the weight for which the bout would be contested would be one of the bigger sticking points. The 36-year-old Jacobs is a 2-time 160-pound champion.
No, he's not.
Danny has only ever held one full title his entire career, and that's the IBF title. The version of the WBA title that he held was a regular title, a Reggie belt. At that time, Gennady Golovkin was full champion.
That's why the WBA ordered Gennady to fight Danny.
All these years later, Danny Jacobs resurfaces, and he wants to settle affairs with Jamal Charlo in a fight that would be approximately 4 to 5 years past the sell-by date.
This fight was a hot topic a few years ago, but a few years later, Danny Jacobs is not the fighter that he used to be, and in many ways, neither is Jamal, who's 3 years younger.
Going through all of these supposed mental health issues that have kept him out of action for 2 going on 3 years, he's expecting Showtime to bankroll this thing. Danny Jacobs is, because if anybody's going to pay for this fight, it's them. And he's not targeting Jamal Charlo for no reason.
He wants a money fight. The problem is today's Jamal Charlo, is that really a money fight?
What's his asking price for that fight? You look at the sheer number of pay-per-views that Showtime has already put on and intends to put on all this calendar year, and what that tells you is they ain't got no budget.
Because if they did, you wouldn't see so many pay-per-views. Those fights, at least some of them, would be on the regular schedule. If Danny Jacobs thinks that Showtime is going to pay him an arm and a leg to fight Jamal,
the most they can do is give him a nominal guarantee, put the fight on pay-per-view in the hopes that the rest of the money will come from me and you. But what does Jacobs versus Charlo do at the box office these days?
come on.
As stated, I think that Daniel Jacobs is barking up the wrong tree. In truth, Daniel Jacobs needs a tune-up fight just as much as Jamal does.
Because a lot of these fighters and their teams don't like to go backwards on the money, they're hard to deal with.
It's reality.